She woke up to the sound of traffic, honking cars, and people rushing to work. She worked long hours at her office job, and lately she felt tired in a way she couldn't explain. Her mind felt crowded, and her heart felt heavy. One day she realized she needed a break, something different, something quiet, something far away from the life she knew. That was when she found a volunteer program at a remote ranch, several hours outside the city. The ranch looked peaceful in the pictures, with wide fields and animals roaming freely. Emily imagined fresh air, open space, and a chance to breathe without stress. She signed up without thinking too much. When the day finally came, she packed her bags, took a long bus ride, and watched as the world outside changed from buildings to trees, and then from trees to endless land. By the time she reached the dusty road that led to the ranch, she already felt lighter. The ranch gate was old but strong, with wooden panels and a name carved across the top. She stepped out of the vehicle, took a deep breath, and felt a new kind of silence. It wasn't empty. It was peaceful, like the land was resting and waiting. A tall man with sun-browned skin and calm eyes walked toward her. This was Rancher Tom. His clothes were simple, worn from use, and he carried himself like someone who understood the land deeply. He didn't talk much at first, but when he did, his voice was steady and slow, as if nothing could rush him. "You must be Emily," he said with a small smile. "Welcome," Emily nodded nervously. Everything around her looked huge. The barn, the fields. Even the sky felt bigger here. Tom helped her carry her bags inside a small guest cabin near the barn. It was simple, but comfortable, with a bed, a small table, and a window that opened toward the open fields. She could already hear soft animal sounds in the distance. After she settled in, Tom took her on a short walk around the ranch. He showed her the stables where the horses stayed, the large wooden corral where they trained animals, and the field where cattle grazed. Emily could feel her heart beating faster whenever a horse came too close. She wasn't used to large animals, and everything here felt so unfamiliar. But Tom kept explaining things calmly, telling her not to worry and that she would get used to it quickly. The next morning, Emily woke up earlier than she ever had in the city. The sunlight was soft, spreading gently across the land. She stepped outside and saw Tom already awake, carrying a bucket toward the animals. He waved her over. "First day," he said. "Let's start simple." He handed her a smaller bucket filled with feed. Emily tried to hold it steady, but her arms trembled a little. They walked toward the fenced area where the animals waited. Emily wasn't sure how close to get, but Tom guided her. The animals moved slowly toward the buckets, and Emily stepped back instinctively. Tom chuckled, not in a rude way, but kindly. "They won't hurt you. Just move steady and don't make fast motions," he said. His tone was firm but warm. Emily watched as he worked. Every motion he made was calm, controlled, almost gentle. The animals trusted him, and she could see why. She tried to copy him, and slowly she felt her fear lessen. One of the horses leaned its head closer to her bucket, and she took a deep breath, held still, and let it eat. It was a small moment, but to her it felt like progress. Throughout the day, Tom taught her simple tasks: how to carry hay without dropping it, how to walk near animals without startling them, and how to listen to the sounds of the ranch. The city had trained her to ignore background noise, but here, every sound had meaning. A rustle in the field, a distant call from a bird, the slow steps of cattle moving, everything was part of the ranch's rhythm. Emily tried her best to keep up, even when she felt tired. Working on the ranch was harder than she expected. The sun was strong, the tasks required strength, and the land itself felt bigger than she could understand. But there was something peaceful in the work. For the first time in a long time, her mind wasn't crowded. She wasn't thinking about deadlines or bills or traffic. She was just living, moment by moment. During the afternoon, Tom brought her to the corral. Inside, a huge chestnut horse paced slowly. Its muscles were powerful, and Emily felt a wave of nervousness again. Tom leaned on the fence, watching the animal with the same calm expression he always had. "This is Rusty," he said. "He's big, but gentle. Just stand still and let him see you." Emily wasn't sure, but she trusted Tom. She stepped closer, standing outside the fence, and watched the horse. Rusty lifted his head, flicked his ears, and slowly approached the fence. Emily held her breath as he came close enough for her to see every detail: the warm color of his coat, the softness around his eyes, the slow blink as he looked at her as if measuring her mood. She felt a warm, unexpected feeling. It wasn't fear. It was respect. Rusty stepped back after a moment, and Tom nodded. "He likes you," Tom said. "Animals know when someone has a calm heart." Emily laughed softly. "I don't think I'm calm. I'm nervous most of the time." "Not on the inside," Tom replied. "You'll get used to this place." As the sun began to set, the sky turned shades of orange and pink. Emily stood quietly, watching the land glow under the fading light. She felt a sense of peace that she hadn't felt in years. The ranch didn't rush her, didn't demand anything from her. It simply existed, steady and patient, and she felt herself slowly adjusting to its pace. That night, as she sat outside her cabin, she heard something she had never heard in the city. Pure silence. No cars, no horns, no voices shouting, just the soft sounds of nature settling down. She felt her mind soften, the way water calms after a storm. She looked up at the sky and saw more stars than she had ever seen in her life. It felt like the world had opened up just for her. She thought about Tom's steady presence, his calm instructions, and the way he seemed to understand everything around him without needing many words. She wondered how long it would take for her to feel even half as confident as he did walking among the animals. Little did she know that the ranch, quiet and peaceful as it seemed now, still had surprises waiting for her. She came here looking for a break, some rest, a little peace. But the ranch had its own story to tell, and soon she would learn that it wasn't just calm fields and gentle animals. There were things out here, big things that she had never imagined. But for now, she lay in her small cabin, listening to the soft wind outside, feeling her eyes grow heavy. Her first day had been full of new experiences, new emotions, and a growing respect for a world she barely understood. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She only knew that for the first time in a long time, she felt alive, curious, and ready for whatever the ranch had to teach her next. The next few days at the ranch brought a mix of confidence and confusion for Emily. Every morning began earlier than she was used to, but she didn't mind. The soft sunrise, the cool air, and the quiet land made waking up feel peaceful. Still, she was learning that ranch life had its own challenges that did not always give warnings. Each morning, Tom gave her new tasks. Sometimes she carried buckets of water, sometimes she helped refill feed troughs, and sometimes she simply walked behind Tom, watching how he handled everything with patience. Emily admired his calmness. No matter what happened, animals making sudden noises, a fence gate swinging too fast, or a horse stamping its hooves, Tom never reacted with fear or surprise. He simply observed, understood, and adjusted. Emily wished she could be like that. But even with all the learning, something strange began to settle in the back of Emily's mind. She often heard unusual sounds coming from behind the barns, deep breathing, heavy steps, or sudden rustling in places where no one seemed to be. At first, she ignored it. Animals made all kinds of noises, after all. But after the third day, she started noticing a pattern. The sounds always came from the same direction, near the far edge of the ranch, where tall grass grew thick. One morning, while carrying hay to the horses, she heard a low, heavy exhale that made her stop mid-step. It wasn't like the sound horses made. It wasn't like cattle either. It was deeper, slower, and felt almost too close. She turned around quickly, but nothing was there. When she looked at Tom, he was working as usual, paying no attention. She wondered if he had heard it too, or if he was simply used to noises she was still learning to understand. By the fourth day, Emily became braver with the animals. She no longer stepped back every time a horse moved close. She even started talking to them softly while brushing their coats or carrying buckets nearby. Rusty, the chestnut horse she had met earlier, seemed to like her presence. He would often walk toward her slowly, stopping just close enough for her to touch his nose. Emily found comfort in that. The animals, even the big ones, felt more predictable than the strange rustling at the back pasture. But even though she was getting used to ranch life, she couldn't shake the feeling that something unusual was happening around the far fields. One afternoon, Tom called her over. He stood near the gate that led to the back pasture. His posture was calm as always, but his tone held a seriousness she hadn't heard before. "Come with me," he said. "We need to check something." Emily nodded, wiping her hands on her jeans. "What is it?" "Some animals have been acting uneasy," he replied. "Could be nothing. Could be something." She didn't fully understand, but she followed him. They walked across open land, the grass brushing against their boots. The sky was wide and clear, and a gentle wind blew across the fields. At first, everything seemed normal. Birds flew overhead, cattle grazed lazily, and the fences stretched across the land in quiet lines. But as they moved deeper into the pasture, Emily noticed the ground. The dirt looked disturbed, as if something heavy had passed through recently. Tom crouched down, studying the marks in silence. Emily leaned closer. "What made these?" she asked. Tom brushed the dirt with his fingers. The marks were wide, deeper than normal cow hoof prints, and shaped differently. "Tracks," Tom said simply. "Big ones." "From what?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Tom didn't answer immediately. He just stood again, his eyes scanning the field. Emily felt a small twist of fear in her stomach. She wanted to ask again, but something about Tom's quiet concentration made her stay silent. Finally, he looked at her and said in his usual calm tone, "It's big. Don't panic." Emily blinked. "Are you joking?" He gave a small smile. "Not really, but we'll handle it." She wasn't sure what that meant. Big animals existed everywhere on ranches, but she had never seen tracks like these before. They followed the path a little further until they reached a tall patch of grass that swayed slowly in the wind. Tom stepped forward carefully, not making sudden movements. Emily followed his pace, her heartbeat rising with every step. Then they heard it. A soft, heavy sound, almost like a quiet snort. Emily froze. Tom didn't. "It's okay," he said softly. "Just stay close." The sound came again, this time a little louder. Emily's breath caught, but nothing jumped out. Nothing moved except the grass. After a moment of tense silence, Tom placed a hand on her shoulder and guided her a few steps back. "Whatever it is," he said, "it's resting right now." Emily swallowed. "Resting? Probably," Tom said. "But we won't disturb it. Let's keep moving." They slowly circled around the grass, giving the hidden animal space. Emily tried to catch a glimpse of what was inside, but Tom stopped her gently. "No need to get too curious," he said with a light chuckle. "Curiosity is good, but safety is better." Emily nodded, though her curiosity grew even stronger. What was resting there? Why did it make the cattle nervous? And why was Tom so calm about something that clearly wasn't normal? As they walked away, Emily kept glancing back, wondering if the grass would move again. But the field remained still, as if holding a secret just beneath its quiet surface. When they reached the horses, Emily noticed that Rusty was acting differently. He tossed his head and stomped the ground lightly, something he didn't usually do. Emily tried calming him by standing near his side and speaking softly, but the horse remained restless. Tom looked at the horse and then at Emily. "Animals sense things earlier than we do," he said. "They pick up on things we can't hear or see yet." "What do you think he senses?" Emily asked. Tom didn't answer directly. Instead, he checked the saddle straps and made sure the horse was comfortable. "Just keep your eyes open these next few days," he said, "and stay close when you're walking through the fields. It's not dangerous, not if we're careful." Emily stood quietly, absorbing his words. She felt the same uneasiness she had felt near the barn when she heard the odd breathing sounds. But she trusted Tom. If he said it wasn't dangerous, then she believed him. Still, her mind couldn't stop wondering what exactly they were being careful of. As days passed, Emily found herself listening more closely to every sound. Sometimes at night, she heard faint movements outside her cabin, nothing loud. but just enough to make her sit up in her bed. She would wait, holding her breath, but when the noise didn't repeat, she would lie back down and tell herself it was just an animal walking by. But the strange feelings slowly grew. The cattle seemed jumpier, and the horses sometimes stopped in the middle of a field, as if they sensed something moving far away. Even the dogs on the ranch barked at the shadows more often. Emily tried not to let it worry her too much. She kept doing her tasks and learning from Tom. She brushed the horses, helped stack hay, refilled water troughs, and walked across the fields each evening to help gather the cattle. She was growing stronger, more confident, and more aware of her surroundings. But every so often, she looked toward the back pasture, the place where the tracks were. The place where something big had been resting in the tall grass. She wondered if she would ever find out what it was. She had a feeling she would, sooner or later. What she didn't realize was that the ranch, the land, and the quiet fields were slowly leading her toward a moment she would never forget. A moment that would happen when she least expected it. For now, she simply walked beside Rusty, letting the cool wind blow across her face, unaware that the real surprise was much closer than she thought. Waiting quietly in the tall grass or in the shaded parts of the pasture, something big, something calm, something Tom understood far better than she did, and soon, she would understand it too. The morning of the incident began like any other day on the ranch. Emily woke up to the soft light of the sun rising over the open fields. The air was cool, fresh, and gentle, brushing against her face as she stepped out of her cabin. She stretched her arms, took a deep breath, and felt a strange mix of calm and curiosity. Something inside her sensed that the day would be different, though she had no idea how or why. Tom was already outside, as usual. He stood near the corral, checking the wooden gates. When he saw Emily walking toward him, he gave a small nod. "Morning," he said. "Good morning," she replied, trying to match his calm tone. She had been here long enough now that she no longer felt like a complete outsider. The ranch felt familiar, its sounds, its smells, its routines. Even the large animals that once frightened her now seemed like silent friends. She had learned how to move around them, how to understand their moods, and how to stay gentle and steady. But there was still something she didn't understand: the strange noises she had been hearing for days, the heavy breathing, the unusual tracks, and the uneasy behavior of the horses and cattle. Part of her wanted to ask Tom more questions, but he always kept his answers simple, almost as if he did not want her to worry. After they finished feeding the animals, Tom walked toward the horses and said, "We need to check the far side again." Emily felt her stomach tighten slightly. "The back pasture?" Tom nodded. "Yes, something has been moving around there again. Nothing to worry about, but we should look." Emily followed him without arguing. Her mind filled with all the quiet rustling she had heard near that area. Rusty, the gentle chestnut horse, stood waiting near the fence, shifting his weight nervously. Emily noticed the way his ears perked up and turned toward the back field, as if listening to something distant. "He's nervous again," she said softly. "He can sense things sooner than we can," Tom replied. "That's why we pay attention to them." They saddled the horses and began riding toward the far pasture. Emily sat carefully, holding the reins gently but firmly. The sky was bright, with a few white clouds drifting lazily above. The land stretched far and wide, quiet except for the crunching of grass under the horses' hooves. As they rode, Emily felt Rusty's body tense now and then. Every time his ears twitched, or he stopped to stare at something, she felt her own heartbeat rise. Tom, riding ahead on his older horse, did not seem bothered at all. His posture was relaxed, his movements steady. When they reached the tall grass near the back pasture, Tom stopped and climbed down from his horse. "Let's walk from here," he said. "Stay close." Emily nodded and followed him, holding Rusty's reins lightly. The grass brushed against her legs as they walked. A soft breeze moved through the field, making the tall blades sway gently. At first, everything seemed normal, but then, as they took a few more steps forward, Emily felt something shift in the air, almost like the land itself was holding its breath. She opened her mouth to ask Tom if he heard anything, but before she could speak, he raised one hand, signaling her to stop. She froze. Tom pointed to the ground. Wide, deep tracks marked the dirt. They looked fresher than the ones she had seen before. Emily swallowed hard. "It's been here recently," Tom murmured. Emily glanced around, nervous. "Is it still here?" Tom didn't answer immediately. He studied the grass ahead, his eyes focused, his expression unreadable. Then he looked at Emily and spoke in a calm voice. "Stay right behind me." Even though she felt anxious, she trusted him completely. They moved forward slowly, pushing past the taller grass. Suddenly, they reached a clearing, a small open patch between the thick blades. Tom stopped again. "Wait here," he said gently. "I'll check ahead for a moment." Emily nodded, though she didn't like the idea of him going alone. Tom walked quietly a few steps forward, scanning the area. Emily stayed where she was, holding Rusty's reins. The horse shifted nervously. To calm herself, she looked around. Near her was a long, smooth log, lying slightly buried in the grass. It looked like a good place to sit for a moment. Her legs felt tired from walking and riding, and she thought sitting might help her feel more steady. Without thinking too deeply, she walked over and sat gently on the log. It was warm, warmer than she expected. She frowned slightly, wondering why a log would feel like that. Maybe the sun had been on it for hours. She adjusted herself, trying to get comfortable. Just as she settled, Tom turned around. The look on his face changed, not panic, not shock, but a very controlled kind of concern. He didn't raise his voice, didn't rush toward her. Instead, he spoke slowly, calmly, almost too calmly. "Emily," he said, "don't move fast, just sit carefully." She blinked in confusion. "What do you mean?" Tom took a slow step toward her, his eyes fixed on the log she was sitting on. "That's not a log," he said softly. Emily's breath stopped for a moment. She felt the ground beneath her shift. Not much, just the slightest movement, like something large, breathing under her. She felt the warmth, the steady pulse of slow breaths that she hadn't noticed at first. Her heart pounded so loudly she could hear it in her ears. What am I sitting on?" she whispered, barely able to speak. Tom held up his hand, signaling her to stay calm. His voice remained steady, but his words were clear. "Emily, stand up slowly," he said. "Don't turn around fast. Don't make any sudden movement." Emily began to shake. She didn't want to move. She didn't want to stay. Her mind raced in every direction. Slowly, so slowly, she felt like she was moving in a dream. She lifted herself from the warm surface beneath her. Her legs trembled as she rose to her feet. "Good," Tom whispered. "Now step toward me, nice and slow." Emily did as he said, one step at a time. She kept her eyes on Tom's face, afraid to look down. She felt the grass brush against her legs, felt the warm ground behind her shift again ever so slightly. Her throat tightened. She reached Tom's side, and he placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You're all right," he said quietly. Only then did Emily dare to turn her head just a little, not fully, but enough to see what she had been sitting on. Her eyes widened. Her breath caught. She saw the large, rounded back of a massive bull lying in the grass. Its dark hide rose and fell with slow breaths. It was enormous, far bigger than any she had ever seen up close. Its body blended so well with the tall grass that she had mistaken it for a log. It was asleep. Or resting. But if she had moved too quickly, or startled it, Emily felt her knees weaken. Tom held her arm to steady her. "It's one of the big bulls," he explained quietly. "He likes to sleep out here." "You sat right on him." Emily's mind spun. She couldn't believe she had been sitting on a resting bull completely unaware, while it lay quietly beneath her. The warm log, the steady breathing, the soft movement, everything made sense now. She whispered, I didn't know. No one expects to sit on a bull their first month on a ranch," Tom said gently, trying to lighten the moment. The bull didn't move again. It remained in the grass, breathing slowly, its eyes still closed. Tom gestured for them to walk away carefully. As they moved back toward the horses, Emily felt her heartbeat slowly settle. though her legs were still shaking. She glanced back one last time at the giant creature resting in the grass. A mix of fear and awe washed over her. She couldn't believe she had sat on something so big, so powerful, and so unpredictable without realizing it. Tom placed a hand on her shoulder again. "You handled it well," he said calmly. "You listened. That's important." Emily let out a long breath she felt she had been holding for minutes. She knew she would never forget this moment. It would stay with her forever, the moment she sat on a sleeping bull without knowing, and the moment she understood just how unpredictable, surprising, and huge the ranch world could truly be. The moment Emily realized what she had been sitting on stayed in her mind long after they left the back pasture. Even as she walked beside Rusty, she kept replaying the scene in her head, the steady breathing under her, Tom's calm voice, the slow rise of the bull's back beneath her. She still felt a shaking inside her chest, but now it was mixed with something new. A deep respect for the ranch, for the land, and for the animals that lived there. She understood now that the ranch was beautiful, but it was also a place where one had to stay aware, stay present, and move with care. When they returned to the main field, Tom stopped near the corral and looked at her with a gentle smile. He placed his hands on his hips in his usual calm way. "You did well today," he said. Emily laughed nervously. "I don't think so. I almost sat on a bull's head." "You listened," Tom replied. "That's more important than anything. Out here, listening saves you." Emily appreciated the way he spoke, without exaggeration or fear. He treated the moment as part of life on the ranch, something natural and educational. And somehow, that helped her calm down. The rest of the day felt different. Emily moved slowly and thoughtfully, paying attention to every rustle, every sound, and every movement in the field. She wasn't afraid, just more aware. The ranch no longer felt like a simple escape from the city. It felt alive, full of surprises and lessons she never expected. As evening arrived, they brought the horses back to the stables. Emily helped brush Rusty, her hands moving gently along his warm coat. Rusty seemed calmer now, as if sensing she had gone through something important. He leaned his head close to her shoulder, almost like he was checking on her. Emily smiled and whispered softly, "I'm all right, boy. Thanks for staying calm." Tom finished putting away the saddles and said, "Let's get some dinner." They walked toward the small wooden house near the cabin. Tom's kitchen was simple but welcoming. The windows let in the orange glow of sunset, and Emily could smell warm bread and herbs. Tom cooked quietly while Emily sat at the table, still processing everything. After a while, she said, "Can I ask you something?" Tom nodded without looking up from the stove. "Go ahead. You knew something big was out there for days. Why didn't you tell me more?" Tom placed the pan on the wooden counter and turned toward her. His expression stayed calm, but his eyes were thoughtful. "Because telling you too much too soon would have scared you," he said. "You needed time to learn the land first. You were becoming more confident. I wanted you to trust yourself." Emily nodded slowly. She understood his point. If he had told her on the first day that she might accidentally sit on a giant bull, she would have run back to the city without looking back. But what if the bull had moved? She asked quietly. Tom smiled, the kind of smile that carried deep experience. It didn't. It was calm. Bulls aren't always angry. They get tired like the rest of us. He picked a quiet spot, and you happened to sit on him while he was resting. Lucky for us, he was in a peaceful mood. Emily shook her head slowly, her eyes wide with disbelief. "I can't believe that happened. It's a story you'll tell for years," Tom said, chuckling softly. After dinner, Emily stepped outside and looked at the sky. The stars appeared brighter than usual, or maybe she was just noticing them more. She stood quietly, letting the cool night breeze wash over her. Her mind felt open, like she was seeing the ranch through new eyes. Tom stepped out and joined her, leaning gently on the wooden railing. "You're thinking a lot," he said. "I am," Emily admitted. "I came here to relax, to escape the city. But I didn't expect to learn so much. The ranch feels bigger than I imagined." "It is big," Tom agreed. "But not just in space, big in lessons. Big in surprises. Emily laughed softly. That's one way of saying I sat on a bull. Tom shook his head gently. You handled it better than most people would have. Most people would have screamed, or jumped, or run. You listened. You followed instructions. That's all a ranch ever asks. Emily looked out at the fields. They were dark now, but she could still make out the shapes of the fences, the barns, and the trees swaying lightly in the breeze. Do things like this happen a lot? She asked. Not every day, Tom said. But every season brings its own surprises. That's what makes this life different. You can't control everything. You learn to understand the land instead of trying to change it. Emily felt those words settle in her heart. She had spent years in the city trying to control her busy schedule, her stress, her future. But nothing ever felt peaceful. Here, she didn't control anything. She simply learned, adapted, and listened, and somehow that felt more natural. Tom crossed his arms, looking thoughtful. You did something important today, he said. You faced a big moment with calmness. That stays with you. It changes you. Emily didn't answer immediately. She let the words sink in. She wasn't the same person who had arrived at the ranch a few weeks ago. She was stronger, braver, more aware of her surroundings, and more connected to the world around her. The next morning, Emily woke up early again, but this time with a sense of confidence she hadn't felt before. The memory of the bull incident still made her heart quicken. But she didn't feel fear anymore. She felt respect. Tom met her near the barn, and for the first time, she noticed something new in his expression, pride. Ready for another day? He asked. I think so, she said, smiling. They spent the morning checking fences and moving cattle from one pasture to another. Emily worked beside Tom, matching his steady pace. She asked more questions now, and Tom explained things with patience, happy to see her interest grow. At one point, Rusty nudged her gently with his nose, and Emily laughed. She felt like she belonged here, not just as a visitor, but as someone who understood the land and the animals in a deeper way. In the afternoon, Tom said, Let's go see the back pasture again. Emily felt a small flutter in her chest, but she nodded confidently. She wasn't afraid this time. As they walked, she looked around with sharper eyes, paying attention to tracks, sounds, and the movement of the grass. She felt like she was learning to read the land the way Tom did. When they reached the tall grass, Emily paused. The place where she had sat on the bull looked peaceful again. The huge animal was gone now, leaving only flattened grass where its body had rested. Emily walked closer, touching the dry blades with her fingertips. Tom stood beside her. You'll remember this spot, he said. I will, Emily replied softly. They walked back slowly, enjoying the wide-open sky above them. Emily realized something important. She had come to the ranch to escape the noise of the city. But she had found something much bigger. Courage, awareness, and a connection to a world she never knew she needed. That night, as she sat outside her cabin, watching the stars again, she felt grateful. Grateful for the land, for the animals, for the peace she had found, and for the one calm voice that had guided her through the most unexpected moment of her life. She smiled to herself and whispered, Too big. Just sit carefully. It was a sentence she would never forget. And it was the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one where nature taught her patience, awareness, and the beauty of living fully in the moment.